Hello, everybody. Warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi, and on the segment tonight, the American dream of Indian students is under threat. First, the job visa, then the green card, and now it's the student visa. And we're unpacking a bombshell from the Trump administration. Proposed visa rules that could upend the lives of over 1.6 million international students in the United States. But here's the twist. Whilst President Donald Trump rolls out the welcome mat for 6 lakh Chinese students, very important for US varsities, Indian students, who make up the biggest chunk at 3,31,602 to be precise, are staring down certain restrictions. And these proposals, driven by concerns over oversight and national security, aim to limit the F1 visas for full-time students to a maximum of only 4 years. The grace period, post-graduation, you may ask, slashed from 60 to only 30 days. So, what next for graduate students? Well, they're barred from switching programs mid-course. And for those longer PhD programs, well, it's a different world of uncertainty. And these new set of rules, they could be hitting Indians the hardest. And if you're asking why you should worry, well, 4-year caps clash with 5-7-year PhDs, forcing mid-program extensions amid rising costs. We're talking about a lot of extra paperwork and, of course, the risk of a denial. There could be disruptions for students authorized to work and derail the H-1B transitions. And even as the Trump administration is preparing to slap these restrictions, Donald Trump is welcoming the Chinese students on the other hand. Listen in to what the US president had to say.
We're getting along very well with China, and I'm getting along very well with President Xi. I think it's very insulting to say students can't come here, because they'll go out and they'll start building schools and they'll be able to survive it. But I like that their students come here. I like that other countries' students come here. And you know what would happen if they didn't? Our college system would go to hell very quickly. You'd have, and it wouldn't be the top colleges. It would be colleges that struggle on the bottom. And you take out 300,000 or 600,000 students out of the system. I like having, and I told this to President Xi, that we're honored to have their students here.
Well, we have great relations with China, says Donald Trump. But what about Indians? Indians account for 29.4% of all foreign students, compared to China's 24.6%. Indian students contribute nearly $12 billion a year to the US economy, second only to China. Indians dominate in the stem cell programs and STEM and research programs, with 97,000 Indians that are authorized to work under the optional practical training, compared to only 61,000 Chinese students. And Chinese students largely go back home after their degrees, building universities, companies, their laboratories, helping building China. Indian students, on the other hand, they stay on. We're long-time contributors. They move to Silicon Valley, to Wall Street, to US research labs. They pay the taxes. They hire, they rehire, they fuel the American tech and the American dream. Yet, Chinese students get the red carpet, and Indian students are getting tougher rules. Why? Well, let's connect the dots here. H-1Bs called a scam. Green cards restricted. Student visas now capped. All this whilst tariffs on Indian goods climb above 50%, the highest on any major economy apart from Brazil. And all this whilst Washington pressures New Delhi over Russian oil purchases. And now, education, the single biggest export of America, worth $50 billion a year, becomes a weapon. Immigration policy turns into a bargaining chip. We've got an informed panel with us tonight, and the big questions that we're trying to decode and ask. If, according to Trump, US colleges could collapse without these foreign students, it'll all go to hell, he'd said at a cabinet meet. Why propose policies that target India, which contributes the most? Are Indian students the new pressure point in this tariff tussle? Well, let's decode that. Irina Sukerman journalist, lawyer, and foreign policy expert, joining us live from Washington, D.C. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Sukuman. Ravi Lothumala, expert in college admissions and career counseling. Again, somebody who's joining us live from Dallas, Texas, USA. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Lothumala. And Ambassador Yogesh Gupta, former Indian diplomat, Pathikrit Paine, foreign affairs and geopolitical expert with us on the broadcast. Ambassador, I'm going to quickly begin with you because first it was the H-1Bs, then it was the green cards, and now student visas capped at 4 years. A new Donald Trump crackdown that we're looking at that could change the fate of Indian students in America, a big and huge number, 3.31 lakh at this point in time. And the irony, even as Indians are facing these tough rules, amidst these shifting geopolitical realignments, Donald Trump seems to be rolling the welcome mat for the Chinese students. That doesn't seem to be, auguring well for the MAGA supporters and the Make America Great Again dream. But what about Indian students? Are we just a leverage point in the Trump tariff tussle with India?
Well, Trump is a sort of a very petty kind of a person, very petty fellow with a real estate background. He's not a politician or a statesman. I remember that on 29th December last year, Trump had made the statement when this controversy had started that, look, he admires the H-1B program. He likes those guys. Those guys are helping the US companies and so on. And so he would like this program to continue. He had said that at that time, but then, he has changed his position as he does on so many other issues. And I think there are several elements to it. The first is that there is a feeling or a word going around in the US that Indians are the biggest beneficiary of the H-1B program or the green cards and so on. And therefore, India must be grateful for it, and India must be obeying what the US wants it to do and so on. That's sort of a thinking, Trump has. Secondly, I think there is a certain amount of personal pique between him and Prime Minister Modi. I mean, over the way things have been handled in the recent past, beginning from this year. Last year's Prime Minister went to US, I think in September, and Trump expected him to meet him. He didn't. Then we had this controversy about the ceasefire issue and Trump's involvement in it. And then finally, when PM had gone to Canada a little later, and he asked PM to come to Washington and so to meet him, PM couldn't go. So Trump has a feeling that, Prime Minister Modi has not cared enough for his sensitivities. And third, of course, he thinks that since he's going tough against the Indian students or India, obviously he can't put India and China together because if the Chinese students also don't come, then that will knock out many of the programs in these American colleges and universities, because Indians and Chinese are the ones who are paying the most to these universities. So there are all these elements, and we have to handle all this very carefully,
But exactly how carefully? Mr. Lothumala, let me come to you next, an expert in college admissions and career counseling. Help the viewers understand here, how disruptive will this 4-year cap on student visas now be? We're understanding PhD students are going to be the most affected. Those with the OPTs are going to be the most affected, especially for, candidates whose research spans 5 to 7 years. But take a look at the economic contribution. Can that be undermined? International students contribute $40 billion plus. Out of that, almost $12 billion are being injected by the Indian students. Universities rely on these foreign fees. We've got Secretary Lutnick, who's come on record and said that 15% of colleges would shut down without these foreign students. So why roll the red carpet for Chinese students and a squeeze on the Indian students? Are we not that important? Cutting Indian students would mean losing high-paying STEM graduates as well.
So thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm into the college admissions counseling business for the last 32 years.
Wow.
All from the US, So with that information, I'm unbiased. and I am pro-rule based, I am pro-ethical and pro-country based, which means I am a born citizen of India and I continue to maintain my citizenship of India. With that said, I want to be very, very clear.
Okay.
The reason why all these things are happening is because of the complete statistics data that is with the USCIS. This data is purely with the USCIS and it is handled by Stephen Bannon, Steve Miller, and Joseph Edlow. So these are the three people who are completely in charge of the entire ecosystem of student education.
Okay.
So what is the data that is telling to that is the data, what are the inputs that are giving from this data? The system has been abused, misused, abused, and pathetically this one. But we have to look into digress and go into some more details. How the rule impacts. Let us be very, very honest and let the world accept that India is the powerhouse of knowledge. There is no other alternative to it. Let it be China, let it be any country in the world. India is the powerhouse of knowledge, and we have humongous amount of IITs coming into play, and we have NITs into play, and we have triple ITs. As long as we have IITs, NITs, triple ITs, trust me, these knowledgeable and intellectual students, if they flow into United States, futures, you will see future Sundar Pichai, future Satya Nadella, future top CEOs originating from our IITs. We should be very, very proud of our country in that angle. Now, there are again few things we have to understand that at any given point of time when such rules are implemented, the low-hanging fruit or the bad apples are going to be fading away. However, the quality of the work which is being done or the quality of the knowledge, either it could be any president, be it Donald Trump or any future president, whoever is coming, they cannot stop India. They have to accept India as the powerhouse of knowledge. There is no other alternative. We should be very, very, very proud that we have such IITs, massive IITs. People don't know that there are top-notch US universities, public as well as private universities, including UC Berkeley's, that are having kind of a joint collaboration with our IITs. Will all these things come into picture? No. Do you know what kind of visa that they go into? There is no question. A visa officer cannot even ask a question whether you are which institution are you from. So it is a straight away staple the visa and go. And let us compete in such a way that let even n number of Chinese students coming into US or these quality students coming from India, let us show to the world that Indians are a dominant society in terms of knowledge.
The numbers stack in the Indians' favor as well. The numbers are in our favor. The numbers are absolutely in our favor. We're a dominant figure. The numbers speak for themselves. I've got Ms. Irina Sukuman, journalist, lawyer, and foreign policy expert, joining us live from Washington, D.C. as well. Ms. Sukuman, Trump welcoming 6 lakh Chinese students, even as these visa rules are being tightened for the Indians. How is this being read in Washington? All those media blogs now talk about how social media users are hitting out against the Republican administration. Is this, from your point of view, purely economics or a geopolitical balancing act with Beijing?
Thank you so much for this question. To make clear, this is not a policy reflective of average Americans, even average MAGA supporters. Most of them have a far better view of India than they have of China. And I think even hardcore Democrats are not in favor of large numbers of Chinese students entering the United States without a very thorough vetting process, which, by the way, is very unlikely at this point that Trump has fired many of the cultural experts and has also dedicated most of the Homeland Security officials to reviewing the 55 million legal visa residents that are already here. That's a huge number of people to review. Who is going to be vetting these Chinese students? They're very likely a security risk, given their political affiliations in China. That said, despite the fact that no one actually voted for this policy, it's being sold as something that is pro-American by the likes of Stephen Miller. However, that doesn't necessarily make it the real reason that this policy is being implemented. It's just being sold as something that is in line with Trump's official policy, simply to make him look consistent with his own rhetoric and policy. The reality is glaringly not so. What do I think is really going on? I think there is a quiet arrangement with China by virtue of which has resulted in a very clear anti-Indian policy and a much more accommodationist policy towards China on many levels. We are seeing that the semiconductors that were supposed to be the linchpin of the U.S. Security, technological security, are now being sold to China. Advanced chips that could propel China to technical superiority. We are seeing that there is an actual reversal on the Chinese student visa policy. Secretary Rubio had previously stated that these visas would be reviewed and even potentially confiscated. There's been a warning by U.S. security agencies against employing Chinese faculty and Chinese students on sensitive projects, and that these policies should be reviewed by companies supporting those visas. So all of that actually goes against what we are seeing here, and only an issue of some sort of a covert deal could explain why Trump is suddenly reversing. What would the administration be getting out of it? For instance, a lump financial arrangement that some countries make with the United States to give full payment for the students. Besides the actual payment that goes to the universities, perhaps the administration or the Trump organization are going to be getting something out of it, or they're going to get some quid pro
But one thing is for sure.
arrangement.
One thing is for sure. You've made pertinent points here. One thing is for sure. MAGA supporters certainly furious with Donald Trump's Chinese students welcome. And what Ms. Hukuman has also put on the table is that MAGA supporters, of course, keeping Indians in better standards when compared to the Chinese out there. But Pathikrit Pai, foreign affairs and geopolitical expert, also with us on the broadcast. Pathikrit, take a look at some of these comparisons. Chinese 6 lakh welcome mat being rolled out for them. Indians currently at 3.31 lakh students in the United States. We're higher when it comes to the STEM and the research programs. Indians are more likely to stay back, work in technological fields and research departments. Chinese students traditionally have dominated the student figures, but they come in large numbers and then they go back in large numbers as well. With that being said, and what the ambassador put on the table and what the admissions expert put on the table as well, that the Indians are indispensable when it comes to the student figures. Why is Donald Trump, let me put it this way, do you see Indian students being a collateral when you see that this is going to affect the New Delhi and Washington ties? And Donald Trump knows that the Indian student community, one of the largest, if not the largest, is an indispensable one.
Good evening. See, first and foremost, the Chinese students going back to their own countries and building up the Chinese economy and institutions, and while Indians staying back for building the American society and the American economy, it's a tragedy for India. Sad. It's a real sad thing. We should not be very happy about that whole idea that we should take pride in our students don't come back. But having said that, we do take pride in the fact that the Indian immigrant population have been extremely successful abroad. They have immense contribution. They are extremely, talented, and they have contributed to the American economy. Now, if the Americans don't want it anymore, then, well, that's their choice. The real problem is this. When it comes to the contribution to the universities, it is almost like $20 to $25 billion for the American universities to compensate for that. It is not easy. Number two, if you look at the H-1B visa issue, that is also because many of the students start working there. By collaborating with Indian companies also. The H-1B visa is going to be a bigger issue, because if you look at the IT services sector of India, almost $200 billion of the revenue comes from abroad, and a substantial chunk of that is from United States. Now, actually, a lot of people actually go from India to work over there. Suddenly, there will be a disruption in that thing. If it is going to help the American companies, well, I don't think so. The Wall Street will be very upset with this. How would they compensate for that? Suddenly, it's not that the Americans can be put into that place and to work. So there will be a hardcore, if you look at from the point of data, there will be challenges that the Americans would be facing, as the tariff issue is going to, bear a lot of brunt for the American consumers, because eventually it is the American consumers who are going to, pay it. But if you look at what Trump is doing, whether it's a tariff issue or all these things, these are primarily short-term measures for short-term gains that he is doing. I think the whole objective is the midterm election that you have next year. I don't think he has a long-term projection of what he wants to do. So far as China is concerned, the concessions they're giving to China is not, it's probably one of the reasons is that they can't put off both India and China, because 200 or 3 billion people, if you cut off, the American economy will collapse.
Yep.
But the other reason is this, that the Chinese have completely shut off any kind of import of American soybean. And the harvest is coming this September. So most of the soya farmers of United States are MAGA voters of Trump. He is desperately hoping for some kind of a deal with China. And that is, and probably there is this perception that he's trying to create a wedge between India and China, which I don't think it's going to matter.
Absolutely.
If the Trump administration thinks that this is how they will try to pressure India, I don't think India will be pressured by something like this. The Indian students, if they are good enough, they would have other opportunities anywhere else in the world to study or study in their own country. And if there are people who thought that for eternity they would have the right to stay back in America after a student visa, then a work visa, then a permanent citizenship, that era eventually is getting over, whether it is in United States or Europe. Now, India cannot ask United States as to why you do not allow an Indian to go and settle there permanently. That is not the issue. So there are certain areas where we will be strictly negotiating with the Americans, and the negotiation is happening on the trade issue. When it comes to the H-1B visa, that is where the companies will negotiate with the American government, that I cannot do these services without my people coming from my company back home. But when it comes to the students always have a choice. You know, America cannot be the last word for education. If you have money, you will go somewhere else. There are many people who have done great in the world without going to America. So let's not presume that your world shuts down just because America doesn't want to stay there, want you to stay there.
On the contrary, from the point where you started, Patikrit, it's a sad situation. If the Chinese can study and go back home and build China better, why can't the Indians come back and build India better? That's one important point. But we do need to focus a little bit on the students as well. I'm running out of time here. Let's again go back to our admissions expert, somebody who's been doing this for the last 32 years in the United States. Mr. Lothumala continues to be with us on the broadcast. Or let me put it this way, should the Indian students now worry? 4-year cap on visas, this could definitely impact who's going to pursue graduate and PhD programs. This could force mid-program extensions. Graduate level students would be restricted from switching their programs. There was a loophole I was reading about students, they put Ivy League on their forms, they get the stamp of the visa and then come to the United States and get their courses transferred to a more cheaper university. That's one loophole, but that cannot be the prime problem. We're sending in 3.31 lakh Indian students, the powerhouse, that you spoke about as well. Should Indian students worry? Your message to the Indian students out there, Mr. Lothumala.
See, the message is very, very clear. Students should be more. Students who come to universities, education, stick to the guidelines. Trust me. Any government, whether it is the US government or the USCIS or the Homeland Security or not, you will not be under the radar of any of these organizations. The problem arose only because they are coming for good universities, all state universities, and switching to schools that are offering flexible academic options where you have to attend only one time in a semester. See, if you look into these statistical data, attend classes only one time in a semester, that too on a Saturday and Sunday. I never heard about such kind of institutions.
Is that even an education? That's not education.
For the last 10 years.
One class in 1 week is not education in any case. And what the other panelists are also suggesting, Mr. Lothumala, should New Delhi now reorient its higher education system so that our talent isn't overly dependent on only the United States? You've been doing this for the last 32 years. Is it time now? And in current geopolitical scenario, maybe India needs to look at other options?
Absolutely, the answer is yes. The best option would be we have to introspect ourselves to make sure that our talent is properly used within India with quality companies and not just the service providers. Come up with the different options and then innovate new concepts and new ideas that will build the homegrown talent. That is very important. And plus, students coming over here or whatever, when they are going back, take the quality culture, create the quality work culture, ethical culture, and then build into the ecosystem. Then I don't think so that nobody can stop us in terms of building products. Right? Nobody can stop us from building any beautiful products that are useful for our country, India.
And then again, if you look at the H-1B, there's always the aspect of, all these companies and all this talented skilled labor, getting offshore. Just like it happens with the Chinese headquarters, they build it in Beijing, and everybody studies in the United States, and then they go back to their own country. Final word, Ambassador, goes to you. Help us understand over here, Chinese students outnumbering Indians, but last 2 years, we've got the better share there. So, and the midterms, of course, that was also pointed out. Midterms, a big focus for Donald Trump. If American colleges risk the collapse, why do you think Donald Trump is targeting Indians? We'll wrap this up. The final word to you. Please exercise brevity.
No, I think it's political, because he is trying to work out a trade deal with the Chinese, and Trump thinks that if he's able to do that, that should take care of some growth in the American economy. And he's trying to please China, by doing these things. And he seems to have some sort of a fight with India going on right now because of the reasons I just mentioned to you.
Yep.
So he thinks that Indians, they are already in large numbers in the US, so they can therefore take some hit. I think, as other panelists have said, our students have to examine if they have some other options. India itself is offering so many opportunities now. We have an expanding economy. So after they have done their degrees in the US, they should come back. They don't need to stay there for jobs and so on, So I would say that they should examine all the options.
The American dream, it's the enticing American dream, Ambassador, that everybody wants to, they fall prey to.
You can't have an American dream you can't have an American dream with somebody like Donald Trump as the president.
All right. I think that's the operative part. Can you have the
times-
American dream with somebody like Donald Trump at the helm of affairs? Something that the entire student body has to now take a look at as well. Ms. Sukuman, many thanks for joining us here. Ms. Lothumala, always a pleasure to have you. Ambassador, many thanks for joining News 9 again. Pathikrit, foreign affairs and geopolitical expert with us here on News 9. We're going to slip into a quick commercial breather here. That's all in your interest on the segment tonight. Many thanks for watching.
Chandigarh, Coimbatore, NCR and Bangalore, Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Raipur and Hyderabad. We've been here, we've been there, Veka's been just everywhere.
This is nothing. My score has 5 stars. तेरे को पता है मेरी स्कोर ना ऑटोमेटिक है और वो भी 7 स्पीड. कुछ भी. Hello guys. My score can fly to Jupiter like a rocket.